Good morning, Des Moines parents. Happy Wednesday. We are live again today with our friends Tyler Coe and Liz Van Arkel for another Ask an Attorney for the month. And we are super excited about our next topic, which is child support. But before we jump into it, I would love to give a chance for Liz and Tyler to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about Denton's Davis Brown. And while you're listening, feel free to drop any comments or questions down below. Give us a heart, give us a like so we know that you're here. And go ahead and you two take the floor. Whoever wants to introduce first.
Liz, why don't you?
Yes, hello. Good morning, Facebook world. My name is Liz Van Arkel, and I'm a shareholder here at Denton's Davis Brown. We're downtown, located on 10th and Mulberry, right across the street from Bubba. We're going to talk about child support today, and I'm here with our department chair, Tyler Coe.
Hi, everyone. I am also a shareholder at Denton's Davis Brown, and we talked about it a little last time, so I'll make it short. But one of the great things about utilizing our services here at Denton's Davis Brown is that we have the ability to get true experts in any type of field, from estate planning to trust to tax, whatever's needed for a specific case. We walk down the hall and ask. Or if one of our colleagues in another state or in another country, if there has to be some subpoena issued perhaps for foreign bank accounts, we are truly the only firm that's truly national and global that can offer this, especially in Iowa. And that's why our practices take us to every county in Iowa, even though we are based in Des Moines.
Awesome. That's really cool to know. That's very good knowledge to know. And Tyler, a little bit about yourself personally. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, as you can probably see with the dog statue behind me, proud parent to a 10-year-old beagle named Delilah. And so when I'm not practicing law, or I also teach family law at the law school at Drake, I am devoting all my time to her to make sure she lives that best life. And so it's fun because we're talking about child support today, and I should calculate how much it would take to have Lila be supported. I'm sure I spend more on her than I do myself. And I think Liz knows that's very true. So yeah, I eat, breathe, and sleep the law and Lila.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. As a reminder, if you have any questions or comments about the subject we're talking about or about the questions we're going over, feel free to drop them below and we can try and answer those as we have this conversation. But let's start with the very basic. What is the purpose of child support? I think a lot of us kind of know, we hear it thrown around quite a bit, but what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, so people ask, what is the purpose all the time? And when you think about it, you're paying the other parent for something. Well, what does that something mean? Well, that something means whatever the parent receiving child support deems necessary for the upbringing of that child. So let's do some examples. So the other parent is living somewhere, an apartment, a house, wherever it may be. The child needs a place to live, so it can go toward a mortgage or rent. Child needs food, child needs clothes, all of those essentials. And one thing that people often forget is how expensive kids are. And so every state has very different child support calculators. And so some states you would be paying $2,000 more, where Iowa you're paying $1,000, or if you're paying $1,000 in Iowa, it could be $500 in another state. I've seen these as I assist clients, and it's very interesting. And so basic needs plus some more. It can also go to daycare for school activities, sports. The one question I get sometimes, at least a few times a year, is, does the parent receiving child support have to basically make a ledger or provide receipts for expenditures? So the answer, I'm going to put it to rest today, is no. There's no legislature has not passed any such law, and the courts have not ruled in any case that says that. Some people find it frustrating, especially if there's a dispute about who's paying for what and why. but that is a common misconception I get, which I understand both sides. You know, you want to make sure your kid's being taken care of, but you have to trust that other parent who's receiving the child support truly is doing what's best for the child.
Right. That makes sense.
I
So
heard-
you kind of, oh, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, I was going to say, I just heard this morning on the way in that Kevin Costner's wife, estranged wife, was asking for $240,000 a month for the 3 children to
Now,
live at the level they're accustomed to.
So that's interesting because the next question I have, and that kind of plays into this, how is child support calculated? Like, where is that number coming from? Because obviously, like us in Iowa, I mean, I don't know, would we be asking for that much money? I'm sure that their living expenses are a lot more than what we are here.
Sure. So I'll answer briefly, then I'll let Liz get into more detail. Fun fact, the most one of my clients received in child support per month has been a little over $26,000 each month. And so that was an interesting case. So child support in Iowa looks like this. You take parent 1, parent 2, what's their income, put it into a calculator. And this calculator is through software that uses math equations promulgated by the Iowa Supreme Court, and they're updated quite often. And what happens is you put the incomes in, how many overnights, right? So this is something where Liz and I have had with a few clients where we co-counsel cases. Just because someone has maybe the children 5 days out of 7 days, but not overnight, they're still going to be paying child support because what is deemed having the children as a day means sleeping physically at their place of living. And so we also take into account issues like who's paying for health insurance. You know, there's a credit for that. So that's always in there. And then recently, in the last few years, you can ask for what's called a deviation for daycare expenses because it's so expensive. As a lot of you I'm sure know, the prices keep rising. It's hard to find, people in the workforce, and it's causing a lot of, troubles. So that is a huge issue we're facing right now as a nation. And the courts have realized that, like the Supreme Court did, and now allows us to take that into consideration. It could be one party's paying a higher percentage, or they're splitting that, and the child support is for other things. So that's the baseline. Liz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's some other things that come into play, like taxes. Who's going to claim the kids? Let's say you have 2 kids. You'll probably have a stipulation that says one parent claims one child, one parent claims the other. It makes slightly a difference on who's doing head of household that year, or if the other side's remarried. It also makes a difference if you have children from another relationship. They can be counted as dependents. And so it's just getting that analysis and that information from your client up front, saying, okay, do you have any other children? Who's covering them on health insurance? Are we paying for daycare? And then it kind of subtracts out the Medicaid costs and Social Security costs. And then it will come up with a number. And that number is typically paid monthly. If you are employed and it's not through self-employment, it goes through Child Support Recovery Unit. It all goes through Child Support Recovery Unit, but if you're employed, there will probably be an order for an income withholding order that is sent to your employer, which tells your employer how they're supposed to follow the order and make the payment. So it breaks out if you're paid monthly, it breaks out if you're paid semi-monthly or bi-weekly or weekly.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Go, Tyler.
I was going to say, make sure if you are the person paying child support that your income withholding order makes it to your employer. Now, the attorney should be doing that, but double check because things can slip through the cracks. And the second thing is you really need to be aware of, a lot of employers aren't aware of this, but there is federal law that says once they receive that child support order from a court, they must actually collect the child support amounts from the employee's paycheck. And they fail to do so, they could be in violation of a federal law, which a lot of employers aren't aware of. And so sometimes we counsel, others in our firm counsel employers on that, because they're not a party, right? They are parent zero because they are not one of the parents. They didn't take part in the court proceedings, but it's something on the federal level that the government or Congress has found important enough to make sure employers have to follow those income withholding orders exactly. So that's just really important to keep in mind.
Okay. So, and when you were discussing, so like daycare and health insurance, how is it determined who is providing that? Like, is there a way to, like, is it parent? How do they determine whether parent A or parent B will be covering health insurance or paying for daycare?
Yeah, Liz, I think we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, and you said it very well. So I'll let you tackle that.
Yeah. So I always have people do the analysis, go to your HR, get the documents if you're not currently doing the health insurance coverage, and find out how much it would be, and then compare that to the other parent. And typically the person who is paying health insurance for the children will also get a little bit of a reduction on their child support because they're paying the health insurance. So sometimes it's beneficial if you aren't currently covering your family, if you can cover it now. Now, if you're self-employed, that might be harder. And so you might want to then see if the spouse can cover your children on health insurance. Daycare it kind of depends on what your custody arrangement is. If your custody arrangement is your primary care, then the other side will probably be paying you enough for you to supplement that daycare. If you have a 50-50 arrangement, then it'll probably be based on your incomes, where you're going to pay for those extracurriculars and those other expenses, probably subject to your income. If someone makes 2 times what you do, then they might be paying more for the daycare than you are. So it could be a 60-40 split percentage wise on who's paying daycare. But those are all things, and those are kind of negotiated. Is child support negotiated? Mm-hmm. No, it's set by statute. Everyone wants to waive child support all the time. You can't do it. Only in super, super rare circumstances can you, if you each make 50,000 and you're going to do 50-50 and you're going to split expenses across the line. Sure. If one of them was supposed to be like $30 a month, you can waive it. But, and that brings me to another point. Even if you don't have a job, if the court thinks that you are fully able to work or even able to work part-time, they can impute child support to you. Impute by saying, okay, you could make minimum wage of $15,080 a year. And so your child support will be based on that. I believe, Tyler, what is it? The lowest amount per month, if someone truly can't work, is like $50.
$50, yep.
Okay.
It was 30 back in the day.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And what Liz said is we do get at least, I would say, once a month, if not more, people, I'll just waive child support because if I do, the other parent said I can have more time with the child. So, and I always have to say, so it doesn't work like that. Or people say, I don't want his or her money. I just want more time with my child. Judges will say, so we can put in an agreement, right? But what the judges will say is this: they will issue an order saying, Liz, Tyler, both parents, I want you to come down to the courthouse next week, and we're going to go through this and explain to me why nobody followed the law here, and we're going to remedy that really quickly. And so that's the last thing that parties want to do, or attorneys, because the judges are not happy when that happens.
Okay. Another question. What if someone has a business but doesn't pay themselves very much? What can be done with that?
Yes. So this one happens quite often. These are the ones that are more complex, but they're a lot of fun. So if someone owns a business, what they can do is 2 different things. They can pay themselves a smaller amount or a large amount. And it's at their discretion because they're a business owner. But oftentimes what happens is they're paying for the other things in life through the business. Cell phones, legal fees. I've seen allegedly seen home mortgages paid through there. Just the things that go through are a little wild. So I'm looking at a general ledger for a business, and after I've gotten the taxes and question what's going on here. And then I get a copy of their ledger, or if they don't keep one, unfortunately, a lot of people do not if it's a smaller business. Then I look at their bank account and, take some time, but we add that money back in where their business is paying for truly personal expenses, right? Or at least a portion of them are personal rather than business, because the courts have been very clear that income gets added back in. And another thing is someone during a divorce can say, you know what, I'm just make up numbers. I'm going to pay myself $20,000 this year while the divorce is going on, even though last year I made 150, year before that, 150, year before that, 150. So the court will say, very suspicious. In that case, they're going to do one of a few things, average out the incomes, or just say 150 is going to be what it is, because in your bank account, you have more than enough to pay yourself 150. So they're basically deferring their compensation, which I have seen multiple times, and they're deferring it, right? It's not like an employer saying we can't pay you because our finances are poor. They're doing it simply because they want to artificially lower child support. So I think that's one of our real specialties, is digging into that type of sometimes chaos, but actually, we've been able to secure thousands more per month for clients because we did that type of forensic audit on a small business.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just, there's a lot of digging, there's a lot of proof put into it, right? It's not just take someone's word for like, oh, that's not there. You're required to show up with showing what's actually being done.
Yeah.
And what happened during COVID is a lot of industries got shut down. What if you're a server? And so the court would take the average of the last 3 years to set that child support amount. Now, what if, you get divorced and a few years down the line, you find out that your ex is now a manager? So every 2 years, you are allowed to have an evaluation, an assessment of your child support through child support recovery. If something happens before that or something really drastic, if there's more than, what's the percentage, Tyler, of an increase?
For CSRU 10, for us, no,
30.
sorry, CSRU 20, us 10.
Oh, okay, us 10. So if there's a 10% difference, then we can go back and modify the child support amount.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah. And if anyone's paying spousal support with that, that gets counted for the other side as their income. So,
okay.
Yep, you won't be hit twice with that.
Awesome. Well, is there any other notes, comments that you want to say before we log off about child support?
Yeah, just briefly, one thing to keep in mind, and no matter if it's our firm or another firm that you use for child custody issues, one thing that I always suggest, no matter what, is to try and list out what expenses you truly have for your child or children. And it seems a little silly when you're doing it, but I'm talking to the granular level. So if your child does dance, right? I want to know how much it's going to cost for like the shoes, if they wear makeup, like all annualized. So we can actually factor that in, because maybe the child support's not going to be enough, but both parents actually want the child to stay in that activity or sport or whatever it may be. And so we can negotiate that type of things. I have a lot of hockey parents, for example, and hockey, I've learned, is very expensive. It is a wild amount of money. And so, but both parents, a lot of times, it's really important that their child continue with hockey because it's their passion, right? And so we can sort of divide those costs out, maybe unevenly. So one time I had parent A paying, this was last year, paying 70% of hockey related expenses, and the other one paying 30%, plus child support being paid. So if it's that important to the child, that's something that should be negotiated.
Okay. Very good.
Well said,
great.
Tyler.
Yeah, very interesting. So if anyone's catching this on replay, feel free to drop comments, questions below. We'll keep an eye on the comment section and try and answer any questions that pop up. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless you two do.
No, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, of course. So happy Wednesday. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will see you guys next month.
Bye.
Bye.